Webster. So next, members, we have House File 1287. The chair moves that House File 1287 be moved before the committee and be re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law. Representative Hollins, I see that you have an amendment. Would you like to move? I believe it's the A1 amendment to get it in the shape you'd like.
Yes, Madam Chair, that is what I would like to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hollins. So I will move the A1 amendment to House File 1287. Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering if Representative Hollins, I appreciate the fact that she wants to move the A1 to get the bill in the shape that she would prefer. Certainly respectful of that. I'm just wondering if prior to the vote that we could just have a little more information regarding the amendment. Certainly supportive of that, but from a form and function, just making that knowable to the members of the committee.
Thank you, Representative Albright. Representative Hollins, would you like to describe the A1 amendment for us?
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, actually. So what this amendment does is it amends the language on probation and parole. So it allows counties to receive information about parole and probation requirements of individuals applying for a license. If those individuals agree to sign a waiver of consent. It also it works on the TPR language, so the termination of parental rights. So it changes current law to be more restrictive. So it now requires that individuals who have had a prior involuntary or voluntary termination of parental rights will be barred from qualification for 20 years. We recognize that it's likely that DHS and the counties will need to plan for this shift in the law through new guidance before the bill is implemented in 2022. Including publication of the new requirements to notify that those impacted are who are not likely to be aware of the change. And then the final thing that this amendment does is it requires DHS to create foster care guidelines for counties to ensure consistency in licensing practices around the state. And the guidance, this guidance and the new standards must be in place by 2023.
Thank you, Representative Hollins. I know a lot of work has gone into this bill, this legislation by Representative Hollins and by Representative Rena Moran last year. And I really thank them for doing the work here. I know this had bipartisan support in the past, and I believe it does again. Are there any questions to the A1 amendment? Representative Albright.
Thank you, Chair. Representative Hollins, thank you for the explanation of the amendment. I'm just curious whether or not the county attorneys support the language within the A1 as you move forward with the addition of it to your bill.
Representative Hollins.
I'm trying to remember. I know we've been in communication with the counties, and I know that there's been a ton of work with stakeholders and trying to find these sorts of common ground where we can move forward on this. My understanding is that they are in agreement with this. It really, what this amendment does would seek to find a balance between two conflicting perspectives and really sort of meet in the middle about them.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not to belabor the point, but I'm just curious if there is anyone on our Zoom call from the county's attorneys this morning that would confirm that or not. I don't necessarily need that to move it forward. I just wanted to verify that if they were available, that they could weigh in on it. Thank you.
I'm not seeing them available, and I'm not seeing letters opposed or supporting of it. Representative Liebeling.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. And while I appreciate Representative Albright wanting to have an explanation of the amendment, on some bills, and I think this is one of them, it would really help to allow the author to just introduce the bill. And if we could adopt the amendment, I think she could talk about the bill as amended, because it just occurs to me that although some of us are somewhat familiar with it from the past, that anyone watching this would be utterly confused about what we're talking about. So I would just like to suggest, if Representative Albright would be okay, that we adopt the amendment and that the author then be allowed to explain what it's doing. And then these questions about who's in favor and who's opposed would make a lot more sense. Thank you.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I certainly agree with Representative Liebling's form and function, but because of the significant changes that this would purport, particularly in this subject matter, I think it's important that people are aware of the magnitude and the ramifications of the amendment. Certainly in support of, as Representative Liebling has portrayed, putting the bill in the form in which the author would prefer it. But I do think in some cases, having that understanding of the amendment prior to the vote just gives a better understanding and informational background to all who are listening, as well as for the committee members. I'm not trying to obstruct the process. I'm just trying to help myself and others be more informed about what is included and what is considered, in my vernacular, a fairly large and wide-ranging amendment. So, with that, I'll leave my comments and move to adopt the amendment.
Okay, Representative Liebling, your hand is up. I'm not sure if you have a follow-up. If not, we're going to take a voice vote because no roll call has been called. So a voice vote on the A1 amendment to House File 1287. Please unmute yourself. All those in favor of adopting the A1, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. To your bill as amended, Representative Hollins.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So as Representative Liebling mentioned, many people are probably familiar with this bill. It's been worked on for many years at this point, and I think we've really come to a great understanding and some compromises on this. So I'm excited to move this forward. The three main purposes of this bill are to bring Minnesota's foster care licensing standards more in line with our adoption standards, to remove unnecessary barriers that exist in current law for relatives in communities of color seeking foster care licenses, and to ensure the well-being and stability of children. So under current law, our foster care licensing standards and processes create many more barriers for individuals, including relatives, than our adoption standards. This inconsistency creates problems placing children in permanent safe homes, and it isn't good for family preservation or child well-being. This bill also brings Minnesota in line with the current federal policy and recommendations relating to foster care licensing and background checks. It's time for Minnesota to rethink the way we license foster care providers. Unlike providers requiring DHS license, other providers requiring DHS license, family foster homes are not a business. They should be a safe haven for children who cannot live at home. And for communities of color, the statutory barriers in our current foster care licensing statute have an even greater impact. This law would help remedy that disparity. We know that when children can remain with relatives in foster care and stay connected to their families, they have better long-term outcomes, including higher high school graduation rates, decreased risk of mental health disorders, and less overall trauma. This bill is supported by many constituents across a breadth of experience and perspectives, and provides a well thought out negotiated balance to ensure both safety for children, but also a reasonable list of barriers that doesn't exclude many wonderful foster care providers who may have had an imperfect past. Now, with that being said, I have two testifiers here today. Would you like me to introduce them, Madam Chair, or would you like to?
I will do that. Thank you, Representative Hollins. So the first testifier we have is Joanna Woolman. Please introduce yourself and your affiliation, and then proceed with your testimony, and welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Representative Schultz. My name is Joanna Woolman. I'm the director of the Institute to Transform Child Protection at Mitchell-Hamline School of Law. I'm also a professor there. Happy to be here today to support this bill. This is the third session we are bringing this bill and seeking to modify the way that Minnesota provides foster care licenses to all individuals, including relatives. And I don't have a ton to add beyond what Representative Hollins stated. A couple things I would say with respect to Representative Albright's question, the county attorneys are supportive of this effort and have been very involved in all the negotiations that have gotten us to the point where we've arrived at today. Just to briefly describe what this does, I think Representative Hollins described the policy well. We're really trying to match adoption and foster care standards. We are keenly aware of the racial disparities that exist in Minnesota's child welfare system, and this bill seeks to create opportunities for communities of color, in particular relatives and communities of color, to be licensable so that they can take in their relatives. That is one of the large motivations behind this bill and has been for the last several years. This bill creates a new section in the foster care licensing statute in Minnesota. And I think it's important to recognize that one of the things this bill does is really calls out that foster care licenses should be different and should be treated differently and come to differently than all of the other types of licenses required under the Minnesota Department of Human Services. It recognizes that foster care is not a for-profit business or a business at all, like an in-home daycare, and that the specific concerns related to child safety should be narrow and focused so that we're not excluding individuals who are the best fit for children in any given situation. One of the things this bill does, in addition, is provides more requirements on DHS, sort of a data forward provision, which requires DHS to give more data upfront to counties so that counties have more information and the licensing workers in counties have more specific information when they are making a decision about a foster care license. And one of the other things I would point out, of course, is that there are many checks on the system when people in Minnesota apply for a foster care license, right? The county makes an initial recommendation. The Department of Human Services is ultimately responsible for providing that license based on the county's recommendation. So that's a check. And then for cases that are involved in our child welfare system, of course, there's a judicial oversight over any placement of children that happens in Minnesota. I don't have much else to offer. I'm completely happy to answer questions. I would just say this has been a long road. We are happy to be here. I personally would just like to thank all of the stakeholders and individuals who came together to work on this bill over the last 3 years. Thank you so much, Representative Hollins and Representative Moran. Look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you, Professor Woolman, and thank you for all of your expertise and working on this bill as well. The next testifier I see is Alexis Oberdorfer. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name and affiliation for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Alexis Oberdorfer. I'm the president of Children's Home Society of Minnesota and the associate vice president of Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota. I represent two of the longest standing foster care and adoption programs that have existed in Minnesota dating back to the 1800s. I have over 25 years of professional experience in child welfare. And in any given year, we place over 200 children in foster care and adoption placements. Regardless of which door a family enters, there should be parity in the criteria that we use for foster care and adoption background checks. In 2018, we partnered with Metro County to assist kinship caregivers that needed to be licensed where they were considering caring for a Black child who had entered foster care. In that year, we served 34 families, and approximately 25% of those families needed to request a licensing variance. We witnessed how the foster care licensing criteria creates barriers for the BIPOC community. There were two cases, an example that really stood out to me. The first case is Aunt Addie. She came forward to care for her niece and her nephew, and she ran into a background check issue with a charge from 15 years earlier for a check fraud. She had paid restitution. She didn't expect to see this. We supported her in seeking that licensing variance, and it was granted. She became an amazing resource for these two young kids, ages 1 and 3. She provided the continuity to their family. She mitigated trauma that they would have experienced if they were placed with a non-relative caregiver. And ultimately, these kids were reunited with their birth father. Grandma Joy was another caregiver that we worked with. She was the grandmother who needed to step in and care for her granddaughter. She had just lost her daughter to an opioid overdose. She had experienced a lot of grief and loss in the loss of her daughter, but then endured a series of obstacles to becoming foster care licensed. She's caring for her 5-year-old granddaughter, and she's needing to figure out how to get through the system. So she found out that there was a 12-year-old charge for economic assistance fraud in her background that was holding her up from getting licensed. We helped her seek a variance as well. She did become licensed in the fall of 2018, and in 2019, she ended up adopting her granddaughter. I asked my management team about what our data looked like for non-relative foster care and adoptive families, and they informed me that less than 5% of the families that we worked with needed to seek variances to be able to become licensed. Research shows that relatives and kin are oftentimes the most stable placements. They promote resilience for children and youth in out-of-home placements. We appreciate looking at and changing the criteria for the background study process to mitigate any further disparities that BIPOC communities experience in child welfare and helping them become foster care licensed, particularly for relative and kin. I urge you to pass House File 1287. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for your time today.
Thank you, Ms. Oberdorfer, and thank you for all of the work you and your team are doing, and we appreciate it. And thank you for also giving us those examples, those concrete examples. The next testifier I have is Kate Rickard. Please introduce yourself, your name and affiliation, and begin your testimony, and welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Kate Rickard. I'm a senior director at St. David's Center Foster Care, and I'm here representing Aspire Minnesota in addition to Quality Parenting Minnesota. I would like to thank you for this opportunity to testify on behalf of House File 1287. Reform to our licensing process is vital to reduce the barriers of fostering for families and ultimately the community. Community-based foster care organizations, which is a private agency that supports and provides oversight for licensed foster parents, values the licensing processes changed indicated in this legislation. Removal from home is an adverse childhood experience for our children. Our goal, when this is deemed necessary for safety, should be on preserving and healing relationships for the child and parents. The modifications outlined in this bill can reduce the stress and chaos when an out-of-home placement is required. Our QPI communities in Minnesota are working hard to improve the experience of foster care through excellent parenting and developing meaningful relationships that last beyond out-of-home placement. As we elevate the lived experience voices, those of the youth, the parents, and our foster parents within the foster care system, as experts to generate solutions to barriers, the need to make accommodations and look at kinship families through their individual lens is necessary. Over the past 9 years in my work at a private agency, I have seen changes in the focus from moving from non-relative homes and looking to relatives and kin as the priority. This is a positive shift for children and families, and this legislation honors that individuals can change and evolve, and that indiscretions of the past do not reflect abilities of today. We must align our policies to the best practices for children and families. Community foster care providers have been active in supporting this proposal and appreciate all of the expert voices who have shaped it. By reducing barriers in the licensing process, we will no longer have to inform families that they are unable to care for their grandbabies due to circumstances when they were 18 years old. One disqualification that stays in my mind from our organization is when a grandfather's prior theft of checks and a vehicle from his own parents when he was young led to a disqualification. These old charges did not pose a risk of harm to his grandchildren 25 years later. This legislation will make a significant impact to reduce fragmentation that our youth, families, and the community experience due to licensing barriers. We look forward to your support in this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rickard. Are there any questions from members? Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the testifiers. And Representative Hollins, thank you for indulging me with form and function at the initiation of your presentation. This is an issue that really invokes strong passions on both sides, and it certainly invokes the heritage of who is to raise children, but they should be raised in a safe and supportive environment. And with that, and particularly in conversations I've had with the county attorney's office in Hennepin County, I support this initiative, and I'll be adding my name as a co-author.
Thank you, Representative Albright. And I believe you were a co-author last session as well, so we appreciate that. Any other questions from members? Not seeing any. Representative Hollins, any closing comments?
I would just like to thank you, Madam Chair, and thank the committee and my testifiers today. This has been a really long process, and I cannot take credit for it. As you know, I'm very new to the legislature, but a lot of hard work has gone into this, and I think we have a really good, solid bill. So I appreciate any and all support that you would give to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hollins. So the chair I renew my motion to re-refer House File 1287 as amended to Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law Committee. We are going to take the roll call. Ms. Hanson, the chair votes aye.
Schultz, aye. Vice Chair Bonner. Aye. Bonner, aye. Lead Albright.
Aye.
Albright, aye. Representative Bolden.
Aye.
Bolden, aye. Representative Burkle.
Aye.
Burkle, aye. Representative Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Representative Frederick.
Aye.
Frederick, aye. Representative Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Representative Keel. Representative Liebling.
Aye.
Liebling, aye. Representative Mueller.
Aye.
Mueller, aye. Representative Noor.
Yes.
Noor, aye. Representative Novotny.
Novotny, aye.
Novotny, aye. Representative Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Representative Pinto.
Aye.
Pinto, aye. Representative Rasmussen.
Rasmussen, aye.
Rasmussen, aye. Representative Robbins.
Aye.
Robbins, aye. Representative Sandell.
Aye.
Sandell, aye. Representative Schumacher, excused. Representative Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Thank you.
Hmm.
That's 18 ayes and 1 excuse, Chair Schultz.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson. The motion passes. Thank you, Representative Hollins. You're on your way with your bill to judiciary, and good luck.